Okay. Yep. I'm alive. Yay. Oh, hey everybody. Welcome to our channel. And welcome to the live show. Ian says hello. Teresa says hi. The sound is a bit low.
Is it? How
Well,
did it look on your thingy there?
on here.
Yeah. Well, it looks. Yeah, you've got it turned down.
This is it here.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that better?
I think that should be better for people. Be somewhat.
Okay, we've turned the sound on the OBS software. And Trinity says, hey, Siofra, hope you and Ian are having a good weekend. And Teresa says, much. Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. Stupid computer seems to change its own settings without asking. It drives you crazy.
Yep.
Jen says, blessings to one and all. And Carlos says, hi, everyone. Yeah, Trinity, we're doing pretty well. Everything seems to be going along like it should at this point. Trying to get, paperwork taken care of for certain things, etc. All the fun stuff. But the universe opened up and got me an appointment with an agency I needed an appointment with in a month.
That.
So yeah, they've revamped their entire organization, and so they only put 30 days worth of appointments up at a time, and then they put one day up after. So each day that's gone, they put one new day up, and trying to be there to find the one new appointment that's available. So this morning or yesterday morning, I succeeded. I was like, yay! Isabella says, hi, just casually checked in and you are online. Nice. Hi, Isabella. Grateful Owl says hello. Hi, Grateful Owl. And granddaughter is recovering, continuing to, she's helping out with the family stuff and whatnot from the person that she was working for after he died last week. And so she's been hired by the family to like get his clothing and take it to Goodwill and wherever, that kind of stuff, and help clean things up. And she seems to be doing pretty well, dealing with the loss, emotional content of it all, which hits each one of us slightly different. So she's having a fun mother-daughter day today. So she's over with my daughter. Erin says hello. Hi, Erin. But yeah, we watched the new Star Trek Section 31 movie and were mightily disappointed. It was not what we were hoping for, so that was a bummer.
Yep.
And we were not the only ones. I was like, what were you
Already,
thinking?
yeah, we're already seeing things. It just came out. We're already seeing things on YouTube like the worst Star Trek ever. Yep.
Yeah.
There was no Star Trek in it. It was some weird cheesy science fiction movie that had nothing to do with Star Trek. Really, they totally. Yep.
Yep.
It was bad.
So, I asked what happens when you have high expectations for something and then it doesn't rise to the occasion. You're more disappointed than you would be if you'd never heard of it and just saw it for the first time. I don't know. But anyway, we had an early morning. I woke up with foot cramp at 4:30 in the morning before last, and Ian woke up to go to the bathroom, and then he decided to stay up, so we watched it. It was like, okay dokie. But hey, little things. we have no control over.
Yep.
I hope everybody is doing all right as far as like, being safe, etc., wherever you happen to be. There certainly have been a lot of changes this week. So hopefully everybody is doing self-care and doing their best to stay calm. Carla says, did you guys see the new Dylan? Oh, yeah. I am looking forward to seeing that. Yes, the new Bob Dylan movie. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. Haven't seen it yet. Lacey says, hey guys. Hi, Lacey. Teresa says, we all need to be carrying salt in our pockets. Yeah, to throw at people. Sort of like in Supernatural, when you throw salt at something and make it go away. Make a circle of salt around you to keep things out.
I just want one of those angel blades that'll kill everything.
If only. Carlos says my phone is spell checking me. Yeah, they don't like to spell apparently his name. Teresa says absorb bad energy. Yeah, I suppose it might do that. That would be one thing you could use it for. I like rocks better because they don't mess up the inside of my pockets. Then I
Yeah,
end
it
up.
is. Both ways are symbols of the earth element, though.
Yep.
But I agree. Salt works. It's just a little more messy, but you can always have it in a little pouch if you need to. But I agree. For something like that, for absorbing, I like a good dark rock like obsidian or something. Doesn't necessarily be glassy and shiny, but a nice black heavy rock.
Yeah.
Hematite.
I
Maybe,
have
I
a
don't know.
piece of raw hematite that's so interesting to look at before it's polished. It's very different looking. I also have a piece of what do they call it, velvet malachite, which is it looks like it would be the softest thing. It looks like velvet. Of course, it's not because it's a rock, but it's very interesting. I
Very
like it.
cool. Yeah.
Carlos says, not at all. Blasphemy for not spelling Dylan's name right. Scott says, I keep salt in pocket because restaurants usually underseason the food. Carlos says, Pneumite around my neck all the time. Whatever works. Definitely. We need to keep ourselves sane.
Well, I guess I might be failing there.
Keeping yourself sane?
Yeah. Not
I
really.
guess it depends on your definition of sanity.
Well, if insanity is considered deviation from the norm, and the norm is our current political situation, then yes, I think I'm insane.
I would agree. I would be too.
I certainly deviate from that norm.
That's true. Carlos says, I feel not sane. Teresa says, is salt affected even if sealed in a plastic bag? I see no reason why not. Plastic bags are not, I mean, if you're worried that the energy is not getting through, test it with, like, a pendulum.
Yeah,
But it's very hard to find anything that will completely block energy. I mean, I had to really find the worst, ugliest piece of polyester I'd ever seen in my life in order to completely seal an item in that I was trying to block the energy of. And I used a pendulum to test that because that works for me. I can't use a pendulum for asking questions because that doesn't work for me, but for checking to see whether energy is coming off of an object, it works pretty good. Jen says, me too, Ian. Some dude says, hi. Hi. How you doing? And Violet says, hi, you two. Hi, Violet. Carla says, I called the Episcopalians today. Meeting with one of the heads this week. Good. I really liked what they did. I thought the bishop was awesome. Some dude says, may I ask for some life advice? You can ask. We don't know what we might say. We'll see. But feel free to ask and see what comes out. We might just say, I'm sorry, I can't deal with that, or it's your decision, but no harm in asking. Jen says, is there any practical magic we can do to help our countrymen who are under the spell of this cult? No, I don't think there is. It's, yeah, I mean, the most we can do is to protect ourselves, keep ourselves safe. The fragile communities that are being threatened, see what we can do. Find if there's some kind of an action that's taking place that we can participate in. Write to people who are in the public service. I mean, it's bad enough with what's already happened this week that my sister who lives in Virginia, her weatherman can't get information about what's going on in the federal parks on the roads because they called to find out what the roads were like to tell people. And they said, I'm sorry, but we're not allowed to give out any information because of the current executive order.
I like the idea of being able to influence things magically, but the problem with that is that there's so many people on board with it that they actually became the majority, and voted our current president into place. And the problem is you kind of got to counter that with almost as much energy to like change things. So if some large groups of powerful people were doing workings, it might do some good to change the climate some, but it's just a lot of energy is the problem.
Well, hopefully the courts and the people that are in positions to challenge these things and their constitutionality or lack thereof will be doing what they can. So anyway, Carla says, me too. They stand by her in my small town. Only stuff maybe to offset ariosophy. What's ariosophy? Is that another typo from your phone? Scott says, let's start a commune in Canada. Oh, but don't you know? Sorry, I got to get off the subject because I'm going to get mad again. So let's talk about magic and not about whatever that
Yes,
thing
sorry.
is. We need to like, ah, ah.
Sorry I brought it up. My fault.
I know. Well, I brought it up too. But I want everyone to be safe. That's my main concern. And do what you can.
Ariostophacy is a dual Gnostic racial religion which attracted followers in Australia and Germany during the first half of the 20th century. The term Ariosophy means esoteric wisdom of the Aryan race.
Oh,
So
bad
that's
then.
rather Hitlerish,
In other
yeah.
words, white supremacy with a twist as intellectuals on it. Okay, thank you for telling me that. Scott,
Largely developed, their esoteric ideological systems were largely developed by Guido von List and Georg Lanz von Liebenfels
yes, and
between
Blavatsky, I'm sure.
1890 and 1930. Yep.
And Blavatsky was one of their
Yeah, so that,
influences.
that was one I wasn't a term I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right. So some dude says I screwed up my friendship with a shadow government member. Then I helped the wrong kind of person and got in too deep. I at least have a clean criminal record. Ooh. Yeah, I'm not sure what I can say about that, except, turtle. Turtling is good. Um, yeah, I would, yeah, I don't know if apologizing would work with your friendship with a shadow government member or not. And, but not making waves and not saying anything, like I said, turtling in, cover yourself up, disengage as much as possible for a period of time, let it cool down if that's what's going on. Jen says, I brought it up too, so apologize, but just truly want to bring good vibes to this in any way. Yeah. And some dude says, it's been years now. Well, in that case, I guess I don't have any advice. Well,
Yep, that's okay, Jen. That was mostly my fault though anyway, so
I
yeah.
mean, it is on
Well,
everybody's
yeah,
mind.
it's a thing that's happening, but yeah.
You can't look on your phone without seeing something else that, in my case, makes my hair stand on end and I start screaming. I was very, very grumpy on Tuesday. Nocturne says, hey, Siofra, how is your weekend? It's sunny right now, cold. We've been having a frost every morning, except this morning it was a little bit warmer, so we didn't have a freeze. So we've been able to see Mars, which has been kind of nice. So that's been sort of cool.
Yep, everything is going good.
Yep. All
Just
things
in
considered,
general.
we're
Yeah.
doing pretty well, I think. Um, Getting ready to apply for passports soon. That's our next step. We got all the legal stuff done for his name, and hopefully they don't say you're not allowed to change your name. I don't know. We'll see. Jen says, your hair looks so pretty today, Shifra. Thank you. I just popped it up there, and sometimes it just looks great, and other times it doesn't. Just, I never know. I just random. Nocturne says, yeah, Jen, she does have pretty hair. But at least it's still on my head.
A lot of mine is no longer on my head. It's leaving a little more rapidly than I care for.
It's a scared.
Yep.
And it's like, help us, we're getting off. But yeah. So we've been distracting ourselves rewatching Supernatural, the TV show. Non-duality says, hi Shifra, I hope you're all doing well. Can you talk about the difference between Western esotericism, becoming, versus Eastern mysticism, non-becoming, non-being? Thanks, love.
Well, that's quite a question.
Well, that is quite the question. Um, I think in the end they all go to the same place.
I agree. And your name there kind of implies potentially your perspective on the matter.
Non-duality.
Yeah. Well, frankly, I like Barton's stuff, and I'm not all that fond of Western esotericism, though I did it for years um, myself, and I got very familiar with it, and Crowley's rites and Golden Dawn type of stuff and all that. In general, though, I greatly prefer the Eastern mysticism for mysticism. And the Western stuff is okay for some magical operations and things, but there used to be a time when it was called doing the great work, in which the idea was to improve yourself till you reach the point of enlightenment and all that. And there was a whole thing with that, and that would be where they merge into one. But nowadays, it all seems more focused on just um, amassing power and abilities and things.
Results oriented.
Yeah, rather than in Eastern mysticism, you get the results being um, natural due to your development. The Western tends to have more of an approach of like, let's see if we can conjure up a being to do this thing for us and that. So, if you're really looking for enlightenment, I would follow the Eastern systems with maybe one exception of Barton's work, which leads you to the same place. Ideally, if you follow the Western systems outright and you follow their procedures, where originally, like the first 5 degrees in the Western system, the first 4 were balancing your 4 elements, and then the fifth one was the Akasha element. And if they're following that, then you'll end up with a spirituality that gets you to the same place. But
Yeah, and that's one of the
it.
reasons why I focus on not gaining, psychic skills or doing spell work in particular, but on self realization, working on yourself, your shadow work, and that kind of thing, becoming a balanced human being. And, I think if you have that focus, regardless of the system that you're using, then you will end up with the result you're looking for. Because there's many paths up the mountain, but, we're all heading up, hopefully, in the same direction. But anyway, Rhinum says, thank you for all the effort, knowledge, wisdom, and experience that you continue to share with the world. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Carla says, passport? Yeah, well, I've never had one. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
not
if
to.
I'm going to leave it right now, I mean, I got the true ID so I can travel within the United States, but I can't go to Canada or Mexico without a passport. So, even on the continent, without a passport, I'm limited in my options. So, if I wanted to travel, or my dream to go to Ireland, definitely need a passport for that. So,
I actually wanted to go one more little thing about that because that's such an interesting question. The non-becoming, non-being versus becoming. Um, at some point, anyone who's taking the approach of becoming has to drop that. If you really want the enlightenment, you can't be and just be in that peace and harmony if you're becoming. So at some point you have to give up that. So that would be the point where they would merge, at the point where you realize that you reach the point where you need to give up that becoming. So, in a sense, even that, they say that you must even give up the path itself eventually, and that's what that's talking about. You have to stop creating the world before you can live in it. You know what I mean? You can be there. That doesn't mean you can't. Yeah. But, sorry, I don't want to go too far on that because that could go into an endless morass of stuff. But yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So Teresa says, Ian, look up rosemary oil for encouraged hair regrowth. Astra says, hi guys. Hi Astra. Jen says, yeah, it's been a sad week for sure. It was nice to see that Danish guy tell Trump to F off. I'm not going to lie, that was satisfying. Yeah, Nocturne says, I agree with the mentality of the Eastern system. Grateful Owl says, hi Astra. Powerful Gold Goddess says, oh, I agree with what you said. Nocturne says, I've yet to sign up for a passport. Carla says, a friend and I were talking about this and we both agreed if things are good in the noggin, things will be okay. P.S. Getting the updated license and passport this time around. Uh-oh. Spill the tea.
Just a tea spill.
Okay. You need to
Sorry.
get something to wipe it up with?
Go on.
All right. Um, Getting the updated license and passport this time around. Astor says, hi, Grateful Owl. Non-duality says, how does becoming lead to non-becoming? Why ever continue becoming to non-become? Why doesn't everyone just start with non-becoming like of Avaita if becoming has to be given up? Because everyone has a different brain
Well,
and the way their system and their body and their culture and their ideology and how they grow up and what they're fed is
well, not
different.
not only that, but this also leads to another common. What you mentioned isn't that, but it makes me think of something that's considered a common misunderstanding there. Um, um, the simple fact of the matter is you can't just start with non-becoming. I mean, if that was all it took, a rock would be more enlightened than a human being because it's not doing anything, it's just sitting there.
There's an
And that's
argument.
well, that's an example they actually use. That's an Eastern example they use because you've got. I'll take an Eastern approach to it since that's kind of what we're talking about. Your life builds up things, memories, tensions, and things in you called samskaras, and I'm not sure I pronounced that right. But the idea is it's old. They're referred to like tapes or recordings that are in your system, and they play out at times. And all those things in your past, and you need to get rid of all of those things and get out of them because you're living this life. I mean, and part of the problem is that I hear from people. Here's where the error comes in. That I know of somebody. In fact, there are a bunch of people who think that once they understand there's a saying that you're already enlightened, but you just don't know it, and then you just need to become that, which is kind of true, but it means you got to get rid of all of this past stuff. But a lot of the people in the Western world think, well, once I understand I'm already enlightened, then I can just say I'm enlightened and I think that way, then I will be. And it's not that simple. What they mean is that that's your true self. Your true self is always there within you, but it's gotten covered up with a conglomerate of garbage from living your life that's collected all around you. And all that garbage and stuff has to be cleared out. And some of the Eastern religions compare it to wiping the dust from a mirror or that kind of thing. And then they make arguments because, of course, they get in the same mode as philosophers do. It's not wiping the mirror clean. There is no mirror. It's just the mind and, all that kind of stuff. But that's the idea. You can't just start there. I mean, it would be ideal if you could, but you got to clear all that stuff off. So that's part of the doing you have to do before you can get to the just being. But if you get to the just being part, then as Eckhart Tolle mentions, you reach a sudden peace. You're just at peace with everything that's going on, and you have a peace and harmony that you never did before, and you lose a lot of the hassles of everyday life. They just cease to bother you and annoy you and make you mad. You just deal with them. And so, that's the real answer to that is it would be great if we could just begin with that.
So, and I would call that becoming clear or becoming a
Well,
true
yeah.
human being,
Yeah,
finding your true will.
there's all
And
kinds of
there's,
names
yeah,
for it. Yeah.
and it's like, that's why there's so many different ways of getting there. So Teresa says, spilled tea, you can read your tea leaves now. No, it wasn't loose. I can't read a tea bag. Robert says, hello everyone. Hi, Robert. Shifra, do you have experience with the jade-like colored gemstone called Ma Sit Sit? No. Carla says, that law of attraction kind of hijacked the real work. Yeah. And then, what you're born into kind of preloads you, like Ian was saying, with all kinds of things. So,
Of course, you've got the karma of your family, the karma of the city you grew up in, the country you grew up in. All of that affects you.
the religion or philosophy that you grow
Yeah.
up
So
in.
you got to think, karma works that way too. It's not just your karma that affects you. You're affected by the karma of the country you're born into because that's what you have to live with, their rules and regulations and things,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc.
Okay, so Asher says, I was singing an opera show for the fairies today. When I finally got hit my high notes, they were supportive and dancing around. I've been taking lessons for a few years. They were so cute. They appreciate mediocre opera. They love the enthusiasm, and, songs are one of their things. Nocturne says, Asher, that sounds lovely. Teresa says, what are your plans for Imbolc? I'm going to try to create a Bridget's Cross and maybe do something with candles. Any suggestions? Well, the Bridges Cross, and is one of the things that we usually often do. You hang them on your door, and your windows, or whatever for protection. I find the Bridges Cross a fascinating thing, considering the fact that the Christians in Ireland and throughout Europe actually took that over to protect themselves from the witches. So, hanging them on, the cows and so forth to keep the witches from making their milk turn sour, etc. So, we're not really doing planned events at this point. We're just sort of getting through one day at a time and doing whatever needs to be done. So Bridget, though, is one of my gals, and I'm sure I'll do something with her. I have that piece that I made, um, that I beaded. It'd be a good time to focus on that. And Bridget really likes inspired and unplanned utterances, poetry, and that kind of thing, creativity. So it's a good time to be creative. Anything creative is something that she appreciates. So Robert says, Shifra, what did you do to cleanse your throat chakra? Well, I sort of worked on all of my chakras, but the throat chakra is about communication. It's about being able to express ideas in a clear way, either for good or for ill, and becoming aware of the fact that with any kind of a spiritual ability comes a certain level of responsibility. So being aware of the words that I say and so forth, and the stories that I tell, doing the best job that I can with that, not stuffing my feelings in my words, although sometimes I let my words change because, yeah, if I'm in a state, my words are not that useful for me or for anyone around me. Um, but yeah, it's if you don't have all the other chakras balanced to start with, and you're not balanced elementally with the five elements, then the throat chakra isn't going to function as well as it
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. The throat chakra is associated with akasha.
And all that communication and stuff. So, um, when you hear someone who has an inspired utterance and see that their emotions and their words can sway a large group of people, that is an example of someone who is using their throat chakra. For ill, of course, we have Hitler and people who are like him, who are persuading people to do things that are unethical, immoral, wrong, and making a persuasive argument that's not really a true thing at all. But on the positive side, you have someone like Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, trying to persuade their countrymen to inspire change and transformation, regardless of maybe some of the, human foibles that, you know, none of us are perfect kind of thing that they may have had. But it also, that kind of strong ability also shows us the dangers of aspiring to use it that way, because if people only change because they're inspired by the words that you use, and they're not inspired to change for themselves, like from their core, as soon as your influence is gone, then so is the reason that they were inspired to change. It's also gone, which you can really see clearly with India in particular, that the changes that Gandhi put in place as soon as he was gone were undone. And, they're not really living up to his vision of what could have been. Um, but yeah, so those are some of my thoughts on the throat chakra. And also, the more open it is, the more responsible you are to not influence people to do things your way, because then you're getting into the muddy waters of thinking you know better than everyone else, and that gets ego involved, which of course is what leads to the negative aspects of the throat chakra, the orators that persuade people to do things that should not ever even have been thought of, let alone done. So let's see. I went on for that, and I'm going to have to back up here. So non-duality says, thank you, very appreciative of the information. Shay says, Ian, was the expression samsara?
No, and I spelled it out down below. You'll see.
Okay.
Answered the question down below, Shay.
Okay, so Powerful Gold Goddess says, oh my God, yes, ugh, the karma. Aster says, it's fun having a little audience. I was very scared to sing in front of people I don't know how to sing a few years ago. So fairy support is great. Oh, good. Help with stage fright. If you end up doing it in front of people, imagine that there's a bunch of fairies in the room, even if they aren't there. That might help. Teresa says, I'd like to do something with candles for the day and need suggestions for what I can do solo. Making candles is a traditional way to do it, is to actually make the candles for the year. And I really don't have any suggestions off the top of my head. Non-duality says, how would Barden's system lead you to enlightenment when you're integrating within Maya? I know balancing the elements leads to equanimity, and Akasha can dissolve some skaras.
Yeah, well, in his first book, even you get to the point where you even end up being able to I don't know how to say it. That's a question that's hard to answer for somebody who doesn't already have a background in the Barden stuff. But basically, you're clearing all that stuff out, and it starts with balancing the elements. You get a hold of your higher deities. You are, even though you don't work on the chakras directly by going through the exercise, they get the chakras working. Uh, One of his books deals with the Kabbalah, which is mostly using the throat chakra to speak the creative word and make something happen. Yeah, there's many. You can't put enlightenment down into one word. It's kind of a state or a condition, but it takes you towards that directly in a magical fashion. Um,
Nocturne also asks, Nocturne says, do either of you know anything about the Satanama meditation?
no, I've seen it mentioned and I ran across it, but I don't remember now what I read about it because I haven't practiced that particular one.
Jen says that Astra, that just gave me the biggest smile. I love it. Astra says, hearts. Jen says, how does one get balanced elementally?
Well, there's a lot to that, and I think I should do a video on that because I've done some stuff on the elements, but not about exactly how to do it. And I think what I'd like to do is make a video on how to do it myself, taking into account what I know from Barden's stuff, but being totally separate from Barden's books, so people can just take it and do it themselves as a separate thing. Basically, you have to make what's called the black and white mirrors, as Barton calls them, not meaning like magical mirrors, but the mirrors of yourself. You determine where you're out of balance in your elements, and then you start changing. For astrally, for example, you start changing your character traits to get your feelings and things. Astrally is all of your feelings and emotions and how they affect you and all that kind of stuff. You work with getting those in balance. You figure out where all your weak points are, how to change them over into good points. Then you're also doing the same mentally. Mentally, you're working with concentrations and meditations. Mentally, you're working with concentrations on things that represent the elements. For example, concentration itself is an aspect of the water element, and if you lack water element, you're going to have problem concentrating. Uh, and you do equivalent exercises with fire, water, air, and earth in the mind. You know, the things you concentrate on, whether you can concentrate on a taste, sensations, and various things like that. And I think I'll have to make a video out of it, but basically, once you start getting those things balanced, you start automatically getting into contact with the Akasha. And once you reach that, that's kind of considered the fifth stage. Then it's said that deity starts coming down to you. You start getting in touch with spiritual things that can teach you and lead you from there. And that's part of it. So, what was I answering there? Oh, how does one get balanced elementally? Yeah. So it's a process, and I think I'll make a video on how to do it because there's a lot to it. You can overbalance if you're trying to get your elemental balance and you're working with just an element. You can get overbalanced and then have a problem and have to counter it with the others. So I'm thinking you should probably do them in duality. In other words, you work with air element one day and the earth the next, or fire and then water, that kind of thing. So you're keeping them more or less balanced. But it's a complex process, and that comprises a large part of Barden's first work. Probably three-quarters of it is in really fine tuning that balance until you start attaining clairvoyance and clairaudience and things like that.
And non-duality says that Jen, it's hard work, but the work is laid out in initiation into hermetics.
Yeah.
So Ian says that Che Samskara is a Sanskrit word that refers to mental impressions, recollections, or psychological imprints that shape a person's life. The word is used in Hinduism and Buddhism. Non-duality says, why did Barden say that the East rejectment of Maya is imbalanced and that the Orient will have to reincarnate and recorrect their view?
I don't know off the top of my head. I wouldn't doubt that he said something like that. I know that the aspect is what he was. I'm going to guess. I'm not sure the exact quote you're talking about, but I'm going to guess here because the problem is if you take that approach, you end up like one of the old sadhus who renounce everything as Maya. And once you've been renouncing everything, you know, and in my opinion, the opposite view should prevail. That if forgive my word use of the term God, translate it deity or whatever you want, but the idea is that everything is a creation of the divine and it should all be embraced. The body, while it needs to be disciplined, should not be, you shouldn't become ascetic in trying to reject Maya. You should accept it as real and here. And yet, the idea is to not become attached to it so that you can deal with it or not. So, the idea has of rejecting that all has a little bit of rejecting reality into it and a little bit of rejecting the conditions we live in, and that kind of hinders you. If you reject everything as Maya, you're not that inclined to help other people because it's all illusionary. They don't really live in their bodies. They're beyond the bodies. They're real. You realize that within them is people that have little to do with the body, that their real being is not the body. So what do you care? That leads to the types of gurus that sit for years in one position and let themselves get eaten by bugs and things and get into execrable health because they don't take care of their body. And I think that was probably what he's referring to is that type of stuff. You need to embrace reality as a creation or as part of the divine rather than rejecting it all. Rejecting it all will get you to that mental and psychic state soon, but you're also rejecting a large part of humanity and a large part of the life that could exist because you can overcome your reactions to these conditions and live in a
And
harmonious earth. So I hope that makes some sense.
that's basically,
Yeah.
you know, being
Yeah.
and being grounded in reality at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my guess. Just that probably he was probably just talking about that aspect of rejecting things that obviously, are. Um,
Okay, so Nocturne says when you leave offerings for the spirits, fae, or elementals on your property, how do you do it? Do you leave it at the base of a tree? Well, that certainly is one way of doing it, or you can build a little space, like, put some stones together, make a little platform. You can have a couple of stumps and stick a board across it and make it like an altar area underneath some trees, or, you know, uh, hang things in the trees to make it special, crystals or what have you. And the thing is that, well, if you're making an offering to a specific elemental, then usually you make the offering into the element. So if you're offering something to the earth, then you would like bury it, put it in the ground or on the ground. If you're making an offering to water, you would find a body of water to pour it into. If you're making an offering to fire, then you would burn it to make the offering to the fire element, that kind of thing. So, you think about what it is you're trying to accomplish. If it's the specific beings that live on your property, then having what I was talking about, having a little altar space works really well for that. If you're trying to create a sacred space or special space for the fairies, you find out what it is that they might like. Like they like shiny objects and things that sparkle and bells and stuff like that. So you could hang some bells in a tree. I mean, this is all about your creative imagination trying to connect to something that is hard for you to wrap your fingers around directly, so because it's more elusive. And so you think about the symbolism of the whole thing, and how would you be able to communicate with a being and what their nature is. So you try to meet them in their nature in order to make that connection. And like they're always willing to communicate with us. Usually we're the ones who are all shut down and not paying attention. And so the process of you opening up and thinking about that can actually open pathways into your mind and your spirit and so forth like that to make things more obvious. So that's what I would do. And if it's like a land guardian, find out about the area that you're in, and what the traditions might be, what kind of offerings that particular spirit might like. Uh, yeah, it's all about educating yourself and being creative and intuitive and stuff. So, so Astra says, with the internet, anyone can have a platform, so a lot of half-baked people try to become spiritual teachers. But even a bad teacher is still a teacher because it teaches you not to be a sucker. Shay says, thank you, Ian, for the explanation. Gabriel says, hi, Siofra. Do you have any experience with little people, Fae, that stick close to water? I had a dream of a village of them on the shores of Florida Bay. They said they were called the Paragora. Well, I'm not familiar with that name. I've encountered any number of different groups of Fae in different locations. So I'm sure that it sounds within the realm of possibility that there are beings that live close to the water, and that's kind of what they're for. And it sounds like what you're describing is probably not the elementals that exist in the water, like the undines and so forth, but the actual fairy folk who are help with the water and the things that live in the water, like the fish and the plants and that kind of thing. But it's not. I'm not familiar with that name. And there's so many spirit beings around the planet. I mean, everywhere. The whole world is covered with them, just like we're covered with birds and ants and mammals. And, you know, it's like there's life everywhere in physical reality, and there's spirit life everywhere to boot. It's like if you could see it all the time, it'd probably be hard to maneuver down the road, especially for me at night. Non-duality said, would you say that Barton's path is like a serpent curved path versus a direct path like self-inquiry?
Actually, I kind of would. I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but there's a path of the serpent on the Kabbalah, which you go backwards up the tree of life and attain these certain things the higher you go up the tree of life, and it's related to the Kabbalah and stuff. But I would say yes because the difference between a direct path like self inquiry gets you to a certain state, um, okay, directly, but it also doesn't deal with like the things you have to deal with in everyday life. And whereas if you follow Barton's path, you get the abilities to deal with everyday life, starting from talking the path of the serpent, we'll say Malkuth, the earth zone, starting where we're at, and you gradually gain the ability as you gradually gain control over yourself. So Barton's includes the inquiry and leads to you getting control over yourself, but then also helps with getting control over your external circumstances. Unlike, some of the old gurus who would go sit in a spot and accept things as they were and not work to feed themselves and um, they would pick a spot and they would be there and that would be that. They accept circumstances as they are regardless of anything, while Barton's more prepares you to help yourself and become ability to function well in the modern world at the same time that you're becoming enlightened and experienced.
Makes you a little bit more
Yeah,
flexible.
and he does get into the self inquiry. That was just talking about the self inquiry versus the elements was just the second chapter in the book, and it continues from there. And every chapter includes large amounts of self introspection and inquiry and practices and things that let you know yourself much better.
So Nocturne says, Astra, yes, exactly. Learn what not to do. Also, the fairy singing is cute. Astra says, I heard it can take a minimum of 3 years to integrate a full Kundalini if you're a pure soul, but 12 years for most people. Some people never do.
I'd
I
say
think
many
it's
people
different.
longer than that.
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody. Depends on so many different
Well,
factors.
yeah, not only does it depend on you and your particular situation, your particular physical health, your teacher, your instructor, your physical situation you live in, whether the teacher has good energy that affects you well. I mean, a good instructor with good positive kundalini you can really catch it from them, and they compare it to like lighting a candle flame from another candle, where they can help start your kundalini and get it going. But a lot of teachers, if they don't have the idea of Shaktipat or don't believe in that, then there are ways around that, but they can't directly start your Kundalini. So it depends so much on who you're learning it from, who you're around. If you're around other people that have Kundalini, you're more likely to have it come up and start and go. So there's a huge amount of factors.
Jen says, I would love that, Ian. Thank you both for all you do. I'm assuming a video on elemental stuff.
Yeah,
Teresa says, if you do a video on that, Ian, please give lots of concrete examples.
I will, because that's definitely part of what I'm still working on at this point is getting my elemental balance improved.
Astra says, Nocturne, yeah, they are adorbs, but kind of kooky to live with. Robert says, Siofra, some versions of what are the elements are circulate. For example, can it be true that the Trinity is solid, liquid, gaseous? Element types?
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's more talking physical, whereas the elements you're mostly talking about are
Right.
analogous to the elements, but
They're not literal.
well, but they
They can
eventually,
be.
if you get to the point, they can be because there's lots of recorded instances of people in India who can start fires with mantras. There's a lot of authenticated ones, and things. Um, so they can be, but yeah, it's just, when you're talking that type of thing, you're just talking another classification.
Yeah. And that's the reason why some people have a hard time with the idea of, like, say, the wand being a fire tool, because they get too specific on the idea that wood is consumed by fire,
Yeah.
and it's more like Ian says, analogous.
Yeah, and
And
if you
I see fire as will, energetic, creativity, focus, concentration, and that kind of thing. So
well, and you could if you want to compare, if you want to add another um, um, analogy to that, solid would be analogous to physical plane, liquid analogous to the astral plane, and gaseous analogous to the mental plane.
Yep,
Of course, keeping in mind that they're all actually physical elements, and
right.
that's just that analogy you're applying. So that kind of thing.
So Asher says, very sure know how to take the piss out of you, that's for sure. I was trying to film my aura, then a tiny elf started dancing a jig on my hand. The audacity. They helped me not to take myself too seriously. And humor is very important. There's no doubt about it. Taking ourselves too seriously is probably one of the biggest ego traps we have. Non duality says, so you feel that Ramana Maharshi would have been considered as the ascetic type that likely needed to be avoided as well?
Um,
And Bardin said what he said about the Orient in the God section in the theory portion of the book.
okay, so no, I don't feel that about Ramana Maharshi, except I kind of do. Um, I didn't say that the ascetic type needed to be avoided, but I think that type of asceticism needs to be avoided. He certainly had the development and such, but let's face it, he let his body go to heck, and he's one of the particular examples I was talking about, letting himself be eaten by insects and that. And supposedly he had the attitude, somebody asked him about it one time, and he said, why should I deprive the insects of their ability to feed on his cuts and things? He basically had to be hauled out of his domicile and set elsewhere, and they built a hut and stuff and made a place for him, and that's all a good thing, and I'm sure it was good for their karma, but he was sitting there letting his body deteriorate and get ruined. So yes, while he had the mental development and the ability to pass that on and everything, I feel the way he treated his body was atrocious, and he ended up with lots of illness because of that, and he could barely walk at the end of his life because of so little, physical activity and sitting in the lotus position so much. So I have all respect for him, and I 100% recommend his teachings. I just don't recommend his activities leading up to those teachings and to him becoming totally enlightened. Part of the problem with him was he reached the state of enlightenment before he was able to work out these other aspects, considering his body and stuff, and then he became so enlightened he just didn't care. And that's one of the downsides, I think, is you become that enlightened, you just don't care about your body or anything else, and that's kind of checking out from the world. And while I don't believe that's, I highly recommend his teachings and what he suggests as far as the ways of getting there. But he doesn't also recommend that type of asceticism that he himself did that I've read about. So that would be my take on that. I
And
don't.
that's not the only form that that comes in.
Yeah.
There's the self-flagellation and torture of the body type of asceticism that's pretty popular in a lot of the fundamentalist churches and that kind of thing, to like get yourself, if you're going to be serving a higher power, God or whatever it is, you need to deny and torture your body because it's a distraction. I think that's the same mistake.
Yeah.
So, okay, so non-duality says it might be only in the Rugerberg
Yeah.
edition, though.
I'll look that up. I have both. I have both the first edition and the newer edition.
Jen says, thank you, non-duality. I'm not afraid of the work. I'm committed to the spiritual path. Nocturne says, thank you, Shifra. You're welcome. Astra says, I'm going to make the fairies a little disco in my closet since they don't want to leave my place. I'll make them a club. Sounds like an idea. Isabella says, practical question here. Used to have a strong magic sight as a child, but with adulthood, I have lost a big part of it. Now I just see flashes of light, mostly blue and white. Yeah, this is not uncommon. Most of us who are born with clairvoyant vision and so forth, as we grow older, we're sort of taught by the people that are around us their non-reactions to the things that we can see. Like in my case, when I saw the lights and so forth in the sky, and everybody in the class looked at me like, what? No, there's nothing out there. What are you talking about? And you sort of start to self shut down in order to preserve um, your place in society, because people that are different are often abused, seen as something wrong with them and that kind of thing. And then also you get distracted by changes in your body, what's going on, the things in the world, things that you need to deal with and so forth. So you don't have as much time to just sit and be in the world and to encounter and see that kind of stuff. So the other thing as well can be an imbalance. I was born with a huge amount of water and air, and so balancing my energies, getting more earth and fire, and getting more elemental balance in myself. When you do that, it can also sort of dampen your abilities for a period of time because you're going back to the basics and you're sort of laying the groundwork so that then you have more control over what's happening. But then as you progress and you understand what's going on, your vision will come back. I mean, at this point, if I want to, I can look at my aura and see colors, actual colors with my eyes open, not in my mind's eye, but visually there, like they're in the real world. And same with encountering spirit beings and that kind of stuff. So I think that it's probably not an uncommon thing. And the seeing the mostly blue and white is a step in the right direction, and you just keep on practicing and allow it to continue. Non-duality says that Jen, of course, wishing you well in your path. Jen says, thank you, Ian. Your explanation was so timely, and you actually answered a question that I had in my spirit but hadn't asked yet. And here you answered it by answering non-duality's question. And Jen says, at non-duality, thank you to you as well. Isabella says, do you think this could be a health thing? I have very restricted experience and was brought up in a Catholic household, so I want to have your point of view. Thanks. My doctor would not understand. And yes, like I think what I said already is probably the most likely thing, but it can also be a health thing because if your body is not functioning well, it's harder for you to have the energy and the wherewithal to be able to let go enough of your physical needs to be able to see things. And some of that stuff can definitely impact you when it comes to that. And I don't recommend telling your doctor that you're seeing flashing blue and white lights unless you're interested in getting a functional MRI, which could be fine and fun, or one of those flashing light things to see if you're epileptic, which I had done once, was fun. I rather enjoyed that because I wasn't epileptic and I saw all kinds of colors with the flashing white light, much to the chagrin of the person who was doing the test, because apparently he had never saw the white turn into any other colors but stay white. He was very annoyed. But yeah, I mean, everyone is a mix of all these things, and sometimes abilities might shut down in order to preserve your health or your energy, because working with this stuff can definitely use up a lot of energetic parts. Your energy systems might need to be within to do something about it. Non-duality says, thank you for explaining it in terms of the tree of life Kabbalah and comparing Barden's path versus the direct path. Carla says, it's all neuroplasticity. Non-duality says, also, when I was talking about self-inquiry, I was meaning the one proposed by Ramana Maharshi.
Yeah, I think it's a great approach, actually. The only thing is it leaves some things left on the table and some things that you don't develop. But if you want to reach enlightenment, it's a good path. It's an inquiry into the self and what you actually are, and you try to find that and feel that and perceive it directly. You are getting rid of the samskaras and things to a certain extent while doing that because that's the only way you can see your true self. Um, but it's a good approach, and the way he describes it is that approach, that type of meditation, which actually put out a video on that type of meditation, um, is actually dissolving the illusory part of yourself, which is those samskaras and things that you take as yourself that aren't really. So that type of inquiry kind of dissolves those things, and he considers it a dissolving of yourself that gradually allows you to see the truth, your true self, and the enlightenment. So I agree, it's also a very good path, though Barden doesn't go quite that way. He takes the way of equal development in all areas, not just aiming for enlightenment, but developing the individual entirely to more like to reach the potential, full potential of a human being kind of thing.
Self-realization.
Yeah, not just self realization, but development
Self-directed.
in all areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asher says, I got shakti potted by an angel that came out of my wall and booped me on the forehead. It was a sneak attack from the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a flying cube inside of a sphere fly through my door and smacked me in the third eye when Ian and I first got together. That was a definite sneak attack. Boy, did that open up my third eye. It just went crazy there for a while. That was quite something. So Nocturne says, if someone has trauma and it manifests as a tightness in the gut, is it best to expel it or do a return to sender thing? Also, how do you expel it? Okay, so when it comes to trauma, if it's in the gut, that's the emotional center of the body. Um, so the things that you can do to bring it up more into the heart center so that you can see what needs to be done about it can be helpful. Journaling, talking to a therapist, doing a thing like the cup transformation exercise that I have up on my website. You can take that feeling and put it into the cup and transform it into something that's more useful, which can help expel it and then not lose the energy of it because there's a lot of energy that's sort of bound up in those experiences that we find. So the swallowing it though and ignoring it is bad because that doesn't work. That turns on you and it hurts your body as well as your spirit. So finding ways to deal with the trauma that are healing and effective
Yeah,
and taking responsibility for yourself.
it is okay to do a return to sender thing, in my opinion. Whatever might work best for you, you might find it easier to ground it out into the earth or something like Siofra was saying, you know.
Well,
But
I
yeah,
certainly did a
don't.
return to sender with my father.
Yeah,
I sent him his part.
yeah,
I wrote that letter to him and sent it to him.
yeah, and I feel that's fine.
Yeah,
I don't find that type of thing. If it
yeah.
came from them, it can go back to them. You
I
know,
figure it's
you
there,
you don't
giving
have
it,
to you don't have to accept their negative gifts.
right, exactly. Giving it back. It's like, this is your stuff to deal with. You're going to deal with it, and I'm not. And it's like, and it can be a huge relief when you do that. So that's another method. F says hi. Hi, F. Gabriel says, thank you for your answer to my earlier question. Do you know of anyone who has attempted to write a field guide or natural history of fae and other spirit creatures? Well, there's a bunch of books that are out there, and whether they're accurate or not is anybody's guess. Because, I mean, the ones I've encountered, I know something about because I've encountered them personally and directly. A lot of times when you're looking at historical documents, it comes from a time when they were trying to make everyone afraid of the Fae. It comes from that perspective. You have to look at the cultural perspective that the information is coming from, and whether or not that information is in the least bit accurate, or if it's colored by religion, belief systems that have been passed down from people who did not understand what was going on, that kind of thing. So I can't really recommend a field guide kind of thing like that because I've seen a whole bunch of them that, say incredibly negative things about uh, these different spirits. I met a forest troll, and there's nothing but bad things in most of the books about forest trolls, and it's not true. I mean, if you are dissing his forest, then yeah, I guess that could come off as rage and danger. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, yeah. Uh, there is one book, Dora Van Gelder wrote a book, The Real World of Fairies, from her personal encounters with them and also some angels and things. And so I think firsthand accounts are going to give you your best information, and then letting yourself be in a place where that kind of thing can approach you, and getting your information directly that way, and having respect and openness. Uh, not The problem with books is you're prejudging your experience before you have it. So like if you're reading a book about somebody that from the point of view of like, this thing did these horrible things and tortured all these people and was icky and awful and so forth, and this is what they look like and this is who they are, then when you meet them, that's going to be your reaction. You're going to be looking for that. So that predisposition of feeding your brain with the notions from other people's experiences that you don't know for sure exactly who they are or where they were at the time, I think can lead to a lot of misunderstandings. And I'm really, for me, trying to stay open to the spirit beings that I meet and not judge them for how they look, because, they can look like anything. And, just have my own boundaries about what isn't okay for them to do around me. But we have mutual respect and awareness of one another. So that's kind of where that comes from. F says heart. Jam says hi, chica, and hi, everyone. Carla says opus deus, dei. F says thanks for the live. You're welcome. Non-duality says, thank you for your explanation on why Ramana Maharshi's type of asceticism is flawed. That's actually why I asked the question about becoming and non-becoming. His treatment of his body confused me. Carla says, hi, Jam. Non-duality says, caused doubt, too. I wouldn't want to be in enlightenment if it caused me to behave that way or like
I
that.
agree.
Yeah. And that's why the path is personal. It's individual and what works for you. Non-duality or Nocturne says, Isabella, my experience has been the opposite. And Siofra, I agree about what you have said about the abuse of different and gifted people. Sad, really. F says, thank you for your video on wands. You're welcome. I love my wands. Isabella says, thank you for clearing it out. F says, is an alchemy necessary to create a circle? One female witch friend says a wand is enough. Yeah, you can do a wand, you can do a finger, you can do a staff, you can do an alchemy. It all depends. An alchemy is like a magical tool of defense and protection as well as will. Focused attention and mental acuity and so forth. And what we often do is when we draw our circle, we draw it not with the athame. At least I don't much anymore. I have in the past. I think it just depends on your natural
Yeah, well,
inclinations.
and what your use of the circle is, if you're doing it for protection, an athame or even a magic sword is good if you really need to be protected against something serious. But most of our uses of circles are not so much for
Yeah,
direct protection
and
from
when you wear your
that.
athame in a circle, the common meaning, I guess, that has been passed down is if you wear your athame on your left hip, you're letting spirits know that you can defend yourself if you want to, but you don't mean them any harm. If you wear it on your right hip, you're expecting to have trouble because of the kind of spirit that you are interacting with. So, um, yeah, so it's a, and with wands, it's like wands are a very adaptable
Yeah.
tool.
For myself, I almost always use a wand for making circles.
Yeah, and for calling in the elements and
Yeah.
everything else. When we were with that group up north, they had never used a wand for calling in a direction, and I think they gave me fire, and I used my solar wand for that, and they were like, "Wow, this never even dawned on us that we could do this." So, and things can change as as your practice develops. There's no one hard fast rule when it comes to this. And with me, I like when I'm drawing the elemental pentagrams, I practice on the physical, the astral, and the mental planes. So it's like depending on when I'm doing it. And when we cast a circle, same thing. When we're drawing a circle, we do that on all three planes, so that we're it's like a circle for me is creating a container for energy because energy is less dense than air, and you want to be able to have something that will hold the energy you're raising in within it, so you can build it up to a pressure point before you release it to do what you want it to do while you're charging it up or programming it for whatever purpose it might be. So yeah, um, yeah, I guess that's the answer to that question. Jam says, my guides told me about a pipe broke. I'm trying to convince that to put hole to see the leak. He thinks I'm crazy and does not believe in spirits. I will call a plumber. Sunday, expensive. I would call a plumber. Yeah, it's a drip, but in 7 days it's big. Well, maybe don't tell him it was the spirit that told you. And tell him that there's a drip. I don't know. But yeah, you can get stuff. Astro says, I stopped seeing auras after a few weeks into my spiritual awakening, so I think my gift shut down a little bit. Well, yeah, you need to do the boundary thing and grounding and stuff like that, so that would be normal. Jam says, thank you for your thoughts. And Carlos says, I've only ever seen auras with psychedelics. I loved seeing auras with psychedelics, but it's way cool to see them without because then I'm in control and I'm not having to ride a wave that has a break that's not in my control whatsoever. So if I don't like what's happening, I'm stuck. It's one of the reasons I don't do drugs. I need to be in control of what's going on with me. Astra says, if I have gnomes around me, are they helping my earth element? They're kind of
Probably.
obnoxious but funny. I have mixed feelings about the gnomes. I've been practicing grounding a lot.
Yes,
Yeah,
I would consider that a good sign, yeah. Unless they're being, they'll generally react to you the way that you react to them, treat them with respect and they'll treat you with respect, that type of thing.
yeah. And Jam says, guess what? My angels are my mom and real dad I never met, and grandparents and best friend and Mr. Janice. I talk a lot about my drama this weekend, a lot of crying. I'm sorry. Yeah, loss is a big thing, and it can be difficult to figure out how to process all that. Carlos says, I don't have a mind's eye. It's more I see in thoughts instead of pictures. Yeah, everyone's got a different
Yeah,
brain.
well, and that can also relate to elemental imbalance. Uh, if in thoughts you mean like hearing like voice, thoughts like voice, then that would be more air and the visualization be more a fiery aspect. So maybe you need to increase your fieriness on the mental plane, possibly. Good, another good reason I can get that video out.
Anemone says, hi, how would you go about making a reverse mirror box, the one with the mirrors facing the target? Is there any herbs that I should add? How do I go about this? Okay, so question, are you talking about putting something in the box and have the mirrors facing the something to focus all the energy? Because I have a video on doing that. It's called Mirrored Box or something like that. Um, if you're talking about putting them outward, you need to,
No, no,
I think that's
no. You got the right thing there.
okay. So herbs and things that you should put inside of it. Well, first I would have a poppet of the target, um, and I would put herbs in the poppet. Like if you're trying to focus the energy, or if they're negative or something, it's like a lot of times I use herbs for my garden, like rosemary and sage and that kind of thing. So it depends on what it's for. So you think about the purpose of what you're doing it for, and what it might need to help focus the energy. So it's that kind of thing. F says sorry for being off topic. Well, I mean, reality is part of our topic. Carla says Opus Dei is part of the Catholic religion where they hit themselves while
That one.
worshiping.
Okay.
Yeah, that's those guys, self-flagellation and whatnot, which I talked about. F says good question about the trauma in the gut. Gabriel says, I think you could write a fantastic book on your experiences of spirit creatures. Have you ever encountered a Sasquatch? No, I have not encountered a Sasquatch. And I'm not going to go out in the woods and try and find one right now. We had two guys go up into the woods in Washington State from Portland, Oregon, and they died because apparently, even though they were going in the woods to look for a Sasquatch, they were unprepared for being in the woods and died from exposure. So yeah, but no, I haven't had a personal encounter with them. Jam says, my spirits told my past said I was a spirit healer and they are preparing me by next year to see them. Okay. Well, being a spiritual healer is I'm a rescue medium, which is one of my abilities, which means that I can help spirits that are stuck, human spirits that are stuck and haven't been able to cross over completely to the other side, and get them a pathway to go to the other side, so they can move on and continue with their progress. And I'm certainly a psychic healer and a Reiki master, so I do energy healing too. F says, beautiful and grateful for finding you in wisdom. Well, thank you very much, and you're welcome. Jam says, spiritual rods. Ask questions, yes or no with them. Told me to buy crystal rocks. I did. Um, I've used rods for I mean, you can use rods for finding water. Um, I guess they're not crystal rods though. I can't.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I can't use like a pendulum. And I think for me, rods, if that's what you're describing, would be similar. So it's going to depend upon your mind and your ability to be clear and not interfere with the information coming through. So it depends on you.
Yeah, I don't have much natural ability that direction. My father could water douse with a willow switch, and he'd do a good job. Get it?
So Ruth says, hi all. Hi, Ruth. Carla says, Ian, thank you. It's more like if I think of my childhood pet, I think of the name and can't picture it in my mind. I consciously remember what it looked like, just can't picture it. Well, there's some people that are like that. My granddaughter is one of them. She can have dreams and she can see visuals in dreams, but she can't picture things in her mind when she's awake. And it's a specific condition, type of brain pattern that some people have, which is hard for me to understand because I'm really good at that. F says, I am perplexed on how to wear the athame. I started making a one as your video was really helpful, a wand. Good. Jam says, divining rods.
Yeah, I just wear the athame. I just have it on a type of sash or a belt and a scabbard, and I usually strap it onto my left side. I don't think I've ever strapped it onto my right to indicate that I needed to use it. I don't work with negative beings, so
Just so
I don't
happens
do
I
that.
have my
Yeah.
athame out here right now. So this is my athame, and this is the belt that I made so that I can hang my athame. And I made the colored part first. Uh, and when I made the belt itself, I focused on, this was mine, making my energy and that kind of thing. And then my girth got bigger because I got older. So then I added another piece on the bottom of it, and I put the original belt that I made on top to keep the energy there. And so this way I can hang it. It has its own hilt and so forth with a loop. So you definitely want to have something to put it in. And then I can just grab a hold of it and bring it out and do whatever. And this came to me in a store. It has a goat bone handle that is in the shape of a panther. And that's one of my power animals. And the goat, of course, is Capricorn, my sign. And the size is so small, but it fits my hand. And it was handmade by somebody. So you tie it on yourself. And Teresa says, how do you choose branches for dowsing? Usually it's willow. And
Yeah,
you,
it depends on
and you
what you're
want,
looking for.
yeah, if you're doing it for water or almost anything, actually, you can douse.
Yeah, willow's a good one for that. It's because of its high water content that makes it magnetic. It has a magnetic overall tendency.
Yeah.
In
And you
that
want to have
analogy
it,
we're
you
talking
want to have
again.
it forked, you want to have it flexible, so you want to have it fresh, not dried,
Yeah.
so that it can bend. And when it works, you have the handles, the two forks are this way, and then the point going down that way, and it'll actually go down
Yeah, my
into the
father always
ground.
showed me to hold it like that with your thumbs against the outer parts of it. So you're holding it like that with the Y coming out this way.
Yeah, and then it'll point down. It's actually
Yeah,
pretty amazing to feel that happen.
yeah.
Carla says, yes, I vividly dream. Jam says, not hungry and feel like somebody ran over me. I'm sorry. Astra says, I'm not seeing the UFO celestial beings as much anymore. They told me I need to get grounded, so they're still around, but I don't see them as much. I've been doing regular, boring human stuff. Good. Jam says, but feel lighter with my feelings, which is good. Astra says, so I'm working on grounding so I can be around the big kids again. Nocturne says, I will look up the cup ritual you mentioned. What is the name of your website? Siofra's Magic Alcove. This is the YouTube channel that you're on right now. I have about over 400 videos on the channel. You go to videos when you first get to the channel. You can search for videos. You can go to videos. You can. I have playlists. You can look through the different playlists and see what is there. And I think the cup transformation exercise is under like magical practices. I think. Jam says K. Astra says, I have to be able to function, so I guess the angels have a point. Well, unless you're going to float off with them. Teresa says, I have lots of trees on my property. I'll try it this year. Yeah, lots of willow trees. And, it's a good thing. So this guy moved around. I have a whale.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is the
Oh,
whale
yeah.
that
Okay, cool.
Jay
Right.
gave me for my birthday.
Right. Here, just get that there. That'll hang better that way.
Oh, was it stuck?
Not really, but I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay.
Tail is good.
Jam says laugh out loud. Okay. We got about 10 minutes left, so we're actually just flying through all sorts of questions today. It's great. Nocturne says, is it called cup cleansing for self-development? Yeah. that sounds like it. Jam says, Siofra, did you have a good birthday? Is your bunny good? Oh, Bunny is funny. And I had a great birthday. I after the live show last week, we went over to my son's place, and my daughter made me this really nice chocolate cake with not too sweet, which was my favorite kind of cake, and it was very delightful, and we had fun. Just I think there were 6 of us that were there. We just had a fun, lighthearted time. And our bunny has started creating little sleeping spots for himself, and he's been very industrious. So he's really been working on trying to get things exactly the way he wants it. It's kind of interesting to watch. What is your whale made of? This is glass. This is like one of those glass beads that they make. It's not quite a bead. It's a pendant, and it's a whale. When I said bead, my daughter got a little bit huffy. Asta says, happy birthday. Yeah, it was last week. I turned 75. Nocturne says, oh, your birthday? Happy birthday. Thank you. Gabriel Samariba says, is there a definite distinction between animals and spirit creatures? Or is it a gradient where we consider the beings we can see animals and the ones that require special sight spirit beings? No, I think there's a difference. One's physical, one's not. And sure, there's densities, but physical density is pretty physical, like in your face. I wouldn't, like challenge a bear or a lion or anything like that with whether or not it was. Yeah. Asha says, I thought you were Gemini for some reason. I have Gemini rising, that's why. Storyteller. Jam says, love, hugs, happy birthday. Thank you. She's a Capricorn like me, Jam says. Yes. Darling Darlene says, happy birthday. Thank you. F says, thank you for showing the alphabet. You're welcome. It's like I just happened to have it here. That's because I did a class on sacred space, creating sacred space, and put up an altar. I need to take my stuff back in the house. Nocturne says, if a sexual type spirit, incubus or a wood nymph, for example, gives you or wants you to buy a plush animal, what does that mean? I have no idea. Yeah. Stuffed animals are nice. I like them. Jam says Capricorn Cancer rising. F says gorgeous belt. Thank you. I don't remember how to do that anymore either. The color stuff. Okay.
Lozenge or something.
I have what? It tickled my throat. Woo! Teresa says, was your blouse a birthday present? No. Are you okay? Yes. Epiglottis not happy. Damn little dingling thing. The base of your throat.
Yep.
I'm fine. Everybody's patting me. That'll teach me to suck on a lozenge and talk at the same time. Okay, I'm good. Nocturne says I've had throat tickles too lately. Yeah, throat fairy.
Yeah.
Better not be. Hmm. I'm ready. Carla says that'll clear your throat chakra. Teresa says I'm having cabin fever these days. What can I do?
I have that problem during the winters too.
Not live up north. Yeah.
I would say all types of little things. Try to get yourself as much light or sunlight type spectrum light as you possibly can. And I had a pine tree once to tell me to take a little bit of pine oil um, to help me to absorb the sunlight better for the winters during to help with my seasonal affective disorder that I have a mild case of usually. Not too bad this winter, but it's gotten bad in the past. We've had more sunlight this winter, so it's not bothering me as much as usual.
And it actually helps. But if you can get one of those full spectrum lights, that can help a lot.
Yeah.
Because part of it, that's what it is the lack of sunlight.
And maybe vitamin D supplements potentially. At least here we never get enough sunlight, so like everybody on the coast here is vitamin D deficient.
Yes, the entire population of the Pacific Northwest. Apparently, we're in a gray zone. Carla says, "Oh man, the cabin fever is strong."
Yeah.
Astra says, "I have asthma. If pollen looks at me sideways, I'm coughing." Teresa says, "I need to buy more pine. That's a great oil for sure. Also, vitamin D. Yes, I forgot that does help." And Jam says, "I do vitamins D3. Well, I think that's the standard D that you use."
Yeah.
Carla says, "I take D3 10,000 units daily."
Yeah, I don't have any specific recommendations for that. We just go buy some in a bottle and take it.
And try to get outside when it's sunny.
Yeah.
And remember, spring is coming. It's that time of year.
Yeah, usually it's worse over here sometimes because we go through a large rainy season, but this year we've had a lot more sun than we've had in the past few years.
Oh yeah, and we have a new thing in our area. Chiggers was a shock. Usually you get those in the Southwest. I mean, I've never heard of chiggers being here, but one of my clients, her cats got chiggers on their ears, and she was thought they were ear mites and couldn't figure out what to do, and nothing was working, and took them to the vet. And the vet had never seen it either, and called every vet in the area to come and look at her cat, so they could see what chiggers looked like. I'm like, whoa. So definitely, climate change is changing our environment to in unexpected ways. And Jam says, "Ever heard of NAD pills?" No.
Well, that's it, yeah. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. Coenzyme that helps cells repair, produce energy, and repair DNA, basically.
Ah.
Levels of it decline with age.
And Carla says, "Add some magnesium glycinate as it'll help as a cofactor." And Teresa says, "I live alone and haven't seen anyone for a couple of weeks. I should book a massage." Nocturne says, "I don't feel depressed during the winter. I tend to get depressed during the summer." Astor says it snowed in Florida, apparently. It also snowed in New Orleans and Texas. And Teresa says, "Thanks, Carla." Jam says, "Supposed to good repair cells." Yep, there's all kinds of supplements. Carla says, love to everyone, just want to say bye and blessed be before you all sign off. Thank you. Yes, we're coming up on our hour and a half, so it's probably time for us to go now that I've recovered from coughing. But it's been a delightful conversation, everybody. It's been great.
Yes, it has. Thank you all for participating, asking such good questions.
Jen says, yes, it did at Astra in the Panhandle, not down where I live, though, in South Florida. Astra says, those poor crocodiles in New Orleans won't be able to pretend they drown as easily. They're drowning. Jam says, thank you a lot. Love hugs. Thank you. All right, guys. If you have any questions, send me an email. ShiefrasMagicAlcove@gmail.com, and I'll answer if I can. F says, bless you. And Isabel says, thank you all. Ian says, thank you and blessed be everyone. Violet says, thank you and very enjoyable. Take care. Jen says, thank you, Ian and Siofra. Esther says, blessed be. Yay. All right. Love to all. Be safe. Whatever's going on, be
Yep.
safe. Bye.
Bye.